What's going on, everyone? So Victor Wembanyama headed into year 2. It's going to be very interesting to see the type of just strides he takes. Right now he's playing for France over in the Olympics. I'm really excited to see him kind of now that we're out of the exhibition games. He was spectacular in the exhibition games. I imagine he's going to continue to be spectacular throughout this just Olympics in general. Don't really think his team is good enough to really win anything, but I do think he will continue to be spectacular. I think he'll get a lot of just experience and growth in that he'll be able to translate to the San Antonio Spurs this upcoming season. But kind of the question is, I really like San Antonio's moves. Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul, I think those were both excellent acquisitions. I also think Chris Paul was probably the best move that they could have made just for the future of this franchise. Not in the sense of Chris Paul being on the team for like 10 years, but in the sense of Chris Paul being a mentor for Stephon Castle, for Devin Vassell, even like Trey Jones, guys like that. And I just think that he's really going to help elevate Victor Wembanyama and just make things so much easier for him, right? Like that was the problem last year, is that, there were so many times where Victor just got completely phased out. He's your best player. Like, he should be taking the most shots. And, everybody's doing everything they can but get their main guy the basketball. I can't tell you how many times I would see Victor, literally establish position, dump the ball down to him. It's an easy bucket. And they would just look him off. Or times he'd be wide open. It's like, how do you miss him? He's 12 feet tall. How do you miss the guy that he's a 7'5" with an 8-foot wingspan? Right? But Spurs found a way to do so. And now with a guy like Chris Paul, I think Victor's really going to have some success. But the real question is, you have right now, you got Chris Paul, likely Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and Victor Wembanyama. Those are the 4 guys that I think are locked into the starting unit. Now, you could go a little smaller and go with a Stephon Castle, right? Maybe you slot him at the 3 for right now, right? And then move Harrison Barnes to the 4. And then now you have Victor as the 5, and just his defense and his ability to just basically completely shut down the paint. You could get away with that more than probably any other team in the league. And I think that is definitely an option. But the other way would be to go bigger. Now, you could go the route of a trade, or you can continue to kind of give Jeremy Sochan the opportunity and the growth, right? Last year, the Spurs tried to do the point Sochan type thing, and it just didn't really work. But that doesn't mean that he can't be that versatile, particularly on the defensive side. Now, the problem is he's just such an offensive liability. Right? He hasn't been great on the offensive side. Still very young, still very talented. He's a guy that can definitely continue to grow and shape and be molded. So it's not a guy that I just think I don't think he's anywhere close to a finished project, right? I think he still has, being 21 years old, a lot of growth and development his way. And he is a real all-around player, right? He just needs to develop a real shot and scoring ability. Right? Because he is kind of a liability. But you also have Chris Paul now. And to me, the things that Chris Paul would be able to do with Sochan as the dunker spot, and just as the screen and roll man, and with Victor's ability to stretch the floor, right? I do think Sochan can be a better kind of version than what we've seen him be. I just think that, Chris Paul is going to have an impact not only on the young guards and Victor, but I think everybody, because he's just going to make things easier for everybody, right? He's the guy that's going to get the ball to everybody in the right spots, in the right position. He is going to be the engine that basically completes the car, right? That way you can go and you drive safely, right? Or, the steering wheel, however you want to put it, right? But I do also think that there is a genuine argument to try to go get a trade, and it's nothing to do with Sochan himself in particular. To me, it's more so of you got Victor. Yes, he's probably best at the 5, but for right now, with as frail as he is and as thin as he is, do you really want him, particularly in the West, with so many big centers in the West? Right? You got like Ivica Zubac, Jokic, even Şengün. Like, you got all these guys that are, that can bang and be physical down on the block. Sabonis, right? Like, and Zach Edey is now with the Memphis Grizzlies, right? And it's like, I saw some stat that was like, Bronny James and Victor Wembanyama weigh the same amount, which is, again, like, do you really want Victor, particularly on the defensive side, trying to bang with the big fellas, right? Or do you want to kind of keep him preserved and have him slotted at the 4 to where he doesn't have to match up against, the Rudy Goberts and all the bigger centers that are just going to be physical and kind of wear him down and beat him up a little bit. So I do think that there is an argument to go get that center, get a Walker Kessler or something like that you can slot in at the 5 alongside Victor Wembanyama, and then he can kind of, like, especially a guy like a Walker Kessler, like, that's why I really like the idea of Walker on the Spurs, because he's also a guy that I think would fit the Spurs system, his ability to make plays out of the post. He's even shown the capability of stretching the floor a little bit. Doesn't take a lot of threes, but he has shown that he can kind of spread the floor. But he's a guy that you can dump the ball down to. He can go to work, right? Like, I don't hate the idea of bringing in a Walker Kessler, but also he's young enough to be a piece for the future. I've even made videos and talked about, Jakob Poeltl, right? Like, I think Jakob Poeltl is another guy that I think, I get why they let him go, but it's like, he would kind of be perfect as that big bruiser center. And that doesn't mean you can't ever play Victor Wembanyama at the center position, right? You could easily play him at the 5 at times, even Alonso had, right? But I just think it'd be nice to have that bigger center that can kind of just handle the burden of the wear and tear, and then that allows Victor to slide over to the 4, at least, maybe like the first 5 minutes and like the last 5 minutes, right? You still, he's still probably best in the biggest mismatch at the center spot, but I just think that, if you can kind of use his versatility to an advantage, right? But even if it is like Sochan going forward and he's the guy that they end up sticking with and end up going with, right? Like, a lot of people talk about, Draymond. Like, look at Draymond and his role, right? Like, look at how good he is, and he doesn't really have an offensive game, and yet the Warriors are able to make work. I've seen a lot of those. I've gotten plenty of comments about those. Thing is, though, it's different when you have Steph and Clay and, Kevin Durant at a point, right? Like, talking about the greatest shooters ever, right? It's a big difference. It's a big difference when you have guys that, they're taking 23s a game each and knocking down 50% of them, right? It's just, so you can kind of get away with that liability on the offensive side. You can kind of get away with, having that guy in the paint because you have such good floor spacers, right? You have such good three-point shooters. Now, there is more to floor spacing than just shooting the 3 ball, as I mentioned earlier, right? You could put Sochan in different actions and stuff to really kind of maximize his skill set and talents. And then plus just his ability to kind of, he could even kind of flash at like, center key, free throw line area. And then he can kind of get the ball and then make plays out of the post, make plays, from the top of the key, right? There's a lot of creative ways that you can kind of utilize, Jeremy Sochan to where I think he could be a real piece going forward for the Spurs. I've seen kind of, confliction among Spurs fans. A lot of people kind of want the Spurs to kind of just trade him and get rid of him, but I don't think you do. Right? I mean, if there's a specific trade out there that makes sense, right? I don't think Sochan's untouchable, right? Like, but I do think that he's still a very good, valuable piece for now in the future. Right? I do think he can kind of mold into that kind of Swiss Army knife type player, right? Like not even like a Draymond, but like even like somebody like a Boris Diaw, right? Like somebody like that who's just, he could do everything. Like get you everything. Play small ball 5, play the 4. Right? I mean, Boris Diaw could knock down and was better offensively, but that doesn't mean that he can't get there. But it kind of reminds me of that, like a Boris Diaw type that can just be that Swiss Army knife. Whatever you need him to do tonight, he can do that and get it done. But also Sochan's defense is I just think very valuable. And I just think that I don't hate the pairing of those two. If you tell me that that's worst case scenario. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that yes, you got to, you got to start Sochan? Do you think no, you don't have to start him, but you got to bring him off the bench? You got to give him a real opportunity, give him a real role, continue to grow and develop him. Do you feel a specific type of way about him? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.